Valve refuses to bend the knee to censorship, to AAA gaming companies, to everyone pretty much. And now, yet again, they're trying to sue them. And this time, well, they're suing them pretty hard.
Valve, the company behind Steam, is at the center of a major new class action lawsuit. The core of this problem, a massive contract dispute. Filed just hours ago, the lawsuit alleges that Valve is breaking its own promises by refusing to pay over $20 million in legal fees for thousands of cases filed against them that could lead to billions of dollars being paid out. In this video, we'll break down the entire story from the confidential.
That sounds pretty wild, but how real is it, you always need to ask in these situations. This is something where you cannot jump to conclusions. You need at least some information.
Slideshow Valve got its hands on to the events that led to this new lawsuit. To understand this, we have to
Remember, Valve seems to be pretty good currently. They're doing a lot of things right, but that does not mean that they are infallible, by the way. There may come a day when Valve just decides to do something bad, even though currently they're fighting against a lot of things. Censorship, AAA gaming companies, payment processors. A lot of things are happening.
go back to 2012. That's when Valve added something called a mandatory arbitration clause to the Steam subscriber agreement that everyone clicks agree on. Simply
Okay.
put, a mandatory arbitration clause is part of a contract that forces you to settle any disagreements with the company outside of a traditional courtroom. Instead of suing them, you have to go through a private, less formal process called arbitration. This process is often faster and cheaper than a court case. At the time, Gabe Newell even called class action lawsuits.
Okay, this is completely incorrect. Arbitration clauses work like this. They are heavily in favor of the company because you cannot sue in a legal court. You literally get to meet with a court person for well, not a court person, but you get to meet with a judge who is picked out by Valve themselves in these cases, who is going to be on the side of Valve because they are the one hiring them, and then you have to then he will mediate between what's happening. This is effectively a super easy way for the company to never lose in a big way. And this is completely one-sided.
A shakedown, and the company said this new system would be faster and better for everyone. Though there are some people who
Everyone.
argue against arbitration, calling it unfair, believing that the arbitrators would favor the business. For Valve, though, they do it all through
Because that's what historically has always happened. There is a reason all companies try to get you to go through arbitration because it's super favorable to them.
the AAA, the American Arbitration Association, which is seen as one of the largest arbitrators in the world, which claims to have protections against any unfairness. It's also important to note that this isn't Valve's only legal battle right now. For example, there is the Publishers vs. Valve antitrust class action lawsuit, which is over Steam's 30% fee. Consumers vs. Valve antitrust class action lawsuit, where they allege Valve is a monopoly and overcharges on games. Valve vs. Rothschild is
Rothschild, bro!
Valve fighting a patent troll who keeps demanding more money. And another consumer vs. Valve class action lawsuit, but this one is in the UK rather than the US, which alleges that Valve has overcharged millions of UK gamers. Lately, there's also been the pressure from payment processors behind the scenes like Visa and MasterCard. So over the past few days, I have been keeping tabs to see if anything happens legally with that situation. But that is when I stumbled upon a brand new lawsuit that just got filed a few hours ago called Smith vs. Valve. Now, this situation actually began back in early 2021 when a group of consumers filed an antitrust class action claiming Valve's policies were a monopoly that artificially inflated game prices on Steam. This was completely
Oh yeah, I remember this, but this went nowhere, I think.
separate from any of the other lawsuits that we just listed off. Valve responded by pointing to their mandatory arbitration clause that they had in their terms since 2012. They argued that because the consumers had all agreed to it, the lawsuit.
So there was another situation about this. Because Valve, while obviously they don't want to get sued into oblivion, they're still kind of slightly fair about this arbitration. And one of the things that they did, This was a year and a half ago, I think. One of the things that Valve did in their arbitration clause said that, hey, if you can't afford the lawyer or whatever, we're gonna get one to give you one in this situation. So some company found a loophole in this clarification that they could just sue Valve like a million times, and Valve, because of their own clauses and rulings, is supposed to get them third party help a million times, or something like that. It was pretty twisted.
Suit couldn't proceed. A judge agreed, and the case was sent to arbitration. So, after Valve successfully pushed the case into arbitration, they likely expected a handful of individual claims. But multiple law firms saw an opportunity. One specifically recruited over 70,000 customers through different ads like on YouTube, and would
Oh.
just say that if you bought a game on Steam,
Oh, I think this is the one.
you were owed money. This led to literally tens of thousands of people signing up with these law firms, not really understanding what they were getting into. This strategy is known as mass arbitration. This is where the story takes a very interesting turn though. During this time, as Valve was being hit with literally thousands of these arbitration claims, they were able to get their hands on a confidential slideshow presentation from an ex-lawyer at one of these law firms involved in the mass arbitration. This slideshow, which was meant to be private, described the arbitration strategy as a business opportunity. It even listed Valve right in the presentation as a target. The firm's
Ooh.
strategy, as described in the slideshow, was to use a large number of cases to force Valve to pay huge amounts in fees, hoping this would pressure them into a large settlement rather than actually fighting each case. The goal was to extract millions, if not billions of dollars out of different businesses. They preyed on Valve specifically as a target, seeing as they have a huge user base, citing over 1 billion user accounts, which means they had a
And people wonder why the legal system, especially lawyers, are called leeches. Because the person who thought about this is a lawyer, okay? 100% obviously. A lawyer. By trade, by definition. And, well, again, there's a reason why they're called leeches, and no one really likes them. Because this is how they make money. They're just assholes. They just do things like this, and no one, needless to say, likes them.
huge pool to recruit from, and were able to recruit people from ads for very little money. Valve saw this as a plot to weaponize its own arbitration clause against them, which was originally designed to pay the fees for an average Steam user, not for huge law firms which see this as a business strategy to make
Yep.
money. So, in response, Valve tried to fight back. They filed their own lawsuit against one of the law firms, arguing that this was an abusive legal tactic designed to overwhelm them. However, a court later dismissed Valve's lawsuit, so while Valve saw this as an unfair tactic, they weren't successful in stopping it in the court. It was at this point in September 2024 that Valve updated the Steam subscriber agreement to change its arbitration clause. The new version removed any mention of arbitration, especially the parts where it said that Valve would pay for the fees. As the cases moved forward, the AAA
Obviously.
required Valve to pay the initial filing fees that amounted to about $1.8 million. Valve paid
mil.
for this,
Okay.
no problem. Everything seemed to be going well.
2 mil for Valve is not actually that much of a big deal, so that's not a problem. They're obviously gonna accept this, even though it's a loss. I mean, hey, if you're an average lawyer company or whatever, getting 2 mil out of a deal like that is pretty tempting for you. Pretty tempting, especially considering you know how probably long it's gonna take to actually go through the whole shtick if you want more. So, good. I guess this is kind of good. It's not really good, but this is probably as good as it gets.
Until the turning point. In March 2025, the AAA sent Valve another invoice, but this time it was for $20.8 million. These fees are called case management fees, which brings us to the main issue of the new lawsuit. Valve has refused to pay this $20 million for multiple months now. The new legal complaint alleges this isn't because Valve can't afford it, as the company is worth billions, but because they are deliberately trying to stop the arbitration process from moving forward. We originally talked about how Valve was refusing to pay the $20 million back in June, after it was confirmed multiple times by Valve lawyers. So this is where the new lawsuit gets introduced, officially known as Smith vs. Valve.
By the way, these Valve lawyers are probably absolute beasts. The stuff that they most likely have to deal with, and considering, well, there's obviously a chance that Valve is hiring also some help when they're in legal troubles and whatnot. But knowing Valve, they probably would just hire people. But the people at Valve who, in general, do the law stuff, they are probably ridiculously goddamn. They are probably tip top of whatever type of lawyering that they do. Because yeah, Valve is not getting people who are bad to work at them because they are a small company. They don't have that many workers actually doing a lot of stuff. So their legal team needs to be absolute beasts, and that kind of looks like what is happening here. What it is.
Valve has been filed by plaintiff Jeffrey Smith, who is represented by the law firm Mason LLP, which was one of the main firms responsible for the mass arbitration attack on Valve. The new 17-page complaint details all the events we just talked about and was just filed on August 5th, 2025. The new lawsuit has two main legal claims. First, that Valve is in breach of its own contract by refusing to pay the required fees. And second, Valve's refusal shows bad faith because they force people into this specific legal process and are now preventing it from working. So you might be wondering, what do the plaintiffs want out of all this? Well, it's much more than just the $20 million in fees. The lawsuit is trying to make Valve pay the fees to get the original cases going again. But the main goal is to get extra money from Valve, which is what all the original arbitration claims were also about, hoping to extract as much money as possible from Steam. The $20 million is literally just the tip of the iceberg, as if all 14,000 claims went through the full arbitration process, the final cost to Valve could be so much larger. While it's impossible to give an exact number, the total cost would likely be in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. For example, a similar mass arbitration case found that a company settled for over 146 million, and if we go back,
Uber settles majority of arbitrations for at least 146 million. Damn.
Over 146 million, and if we go back to the presentation, they easily explain how they use this to make billions of dollars with this tactic.
Okay, so let me explain how they try to do this. Because, well, they're the lawyers who can ask, who get to put the bill on the person, right? Because they get to choose how much their time is worth. And naturally, well, they're going to charge a lot for this. That's the whole tactic. That's the whole point.
Now, although at the moment the entire lawsuit is sort of centered around one guy named Jeffrey Smith, the lawsuit actually wants to represent a whole class of people. All Steam subscribers in the United States who filed an antitrust arbitration claim against Valve that they then failed to pay the fees for. This means if your claim is part of the 14,000 plus people that were held up, you may automatically be part of this new lawsuit. Now, this is a brand new case, so we are in the very early stages, as this is the one and only document filed for Smith vs. Valve so far, and Valve will have a chance to file a response before this can proceed as a class action.
I want to know what Valve's response is going to be, because it's probably going to be pretty wild. Valve does not mess around in a lot of cases. Again, will Valve want support? They're gonna get support from the public. I mean, Valve has this thing that no one really talks about too much, but it's the fact that, I mean, most of us love Valve, obviously. I like Valve. There was a time years ago when I thought that Valve was pretty shitty for not trying anything and not really improving at all. But turns out that was actually me being wrong, and Valve not trying to improve is a good thing to a degree nowadays, especially with everything happening around us. But, well, what's going to happen if Valve comes out with an announcement, oh, things might be bad? How many millions of people are going to try to find ways to make that company's life harder? Probably a lot. The pressure online for that company for a shitty lawsuit or a tactic like this is going to be massive. I mean, it's going to get wild. and all of the names are going to be visible, who knows what happens at that point. Something actually truly threatening Valve and its existence would probably make an absolutely massive stir. Considering if Valve goes bye-bye, where the hell do I buy GTA 6? Where do I buy GTA 6 if Valve goes kaput? I'm not buying a console. Well, what the fuck? Wait, I need Valve for GTA 6. It's that simple, boys. I ain't gonna lie.
Action, a judge has to certify it, which essentially just means they have to confirm it. On one hand, the plaintiffs have a strong case for certification because their claims are based on clear objective facts, as Valve is refusing to pay the fees. But Valve will fight this hard. They will almost certainly argue that this entire strategy is an abuse of the legal system and that the law firms, not the consumers, are the ones driving the litigation for profit. They'll use the confidential slideshow as key evidence to paint this as a legal shakedown. So it will be up to the courts to decide if this fully proceeds as a class action or not. So what does this all mean for you, the average Steam user? This case is a perfect example of a powerful legal tactic being used to force a company into paying a massive settlement. From Valve's perspective, they're just fighting back against law firms that are trying to weaponize its own arbitration clause. By refusing to pay these fees, Valve is essentially saying, we will not be pressured into a settlement by a legal strategy that is designed to drain our resources, as the law firms see this as an investment opportunity, not an actual effort to help individual consumers. So this legal
Does this work? Because every law firm sees this as an investment opportunity and they don't actually care about the people. I mean, again, there's a reason. There's a reason no one likes lawyers and whatnot. They are a plight. Anyway, well, what can I honestly say? That was Water S CS 2 10 out of 10. Bye!